I'm Scott Johnson, host of Men Talk, a bright news show and a powerful show on the B-Lane Network. Last week we talked about Trayvon Martin and how that case is going. We talked about the marches, and we talked a little bit about his family, his mother and his dad, and we talked a little bit about him. This is what we have here. We have Trayvon walking home. We have this George Zimmerman, who was a watch captain of that particular neighborhood, following him. We have a 911 call. Trayvon is supposedly talking to a friend of his. There was a minute of tape with the 911 call, and after that, we have a young man dead. So America is up in arms about this here. We're marching, we're calling, we're calling our Congress people, we're calling the people the people in the Justice Department. We're saying what we want down about this here. But someone asked the question today, well, what next? Because this is what the Justice Department is supposed to do. They're supposed to take these steps. They're supposed to find out whether this guy should be charged and then charge him if he should be charged. So now the marching we've done, the monies that we've spent to try to get to this particular point, what now? What do we do now? Do we rest on that and say, Justice Department, do your thing? Or do we try to prevent this from happening again? Do we say there's not going to be any more Trayvon Martins in my neighborhood? There's not going to be any more Trayvon Martins in America. We're going to treat the young black man with a little more respect. At some point in time, we have to get tired of all this killing on the street, all the young men going early, because at 17 you haven't done anything. It saddens my heart due to the fact that I've done a little traveling. I've been to a few places in my life. And you see a 17-year-old young man go down. He hasn't done anything, hasn't been anywhere, hasn't seen life. He hadn't saw the ups and downs that come with life. So to lose your life at an early age of 17 and 16 and 15, it's a travesty. And so we all have to get that frame of mind that we no longer will put up with this travesty. We have to stop the killing on the street. We got to get rid of that mindset that it's okay to kill a young man, or it's okay for you to go to jail. It's okay for you to do this here, as long as you're doing this here. As long as you feel okay, I'm okay with it. No, we as older men, I'm 56. As older men, we have to implement some of the things that we learned when we were young. Because some of the values that we had growing up, the young men don't have those values anymore. They're not being taught those things. So they're almost on their own. They're trying things rather than being taught things. So in a lot of times, these taught things or these things that you can learn on the street are not things that are conducive for you to live a long life. We posed a question to quite a few men on the street. We wanted to get the general consensus of how men feel about this situation. How do you feel about young men dying? How do you feel about the Trayvon Martin situation? And we're going to let you see how they feel about it.
How y'all doing? I'm just here with my main man, Bo, and we're discussing the Trayvon Martin episode, the events that occurred during the most recent years, and I want to get my little impact on it. One thing that I do want to focus on is the whole thing is surrounded by the stand your ground law. Now, everybody's looking at Zimmerman stand your ground and the law that's protecting him, but what about the victim here, Trayvon Martin? Now, he's a real victim, and since he was not the aggressor, but he was the one the victim in this episode, the law is really to protect him. Nobody have really discussed that. So my thought on the whole matter is, as far as staying your ground, if we're going to really look at that law seriously, then Zimmerman should have been locked up from the day that it started. And then tried by a jury of his peers. And how could you even let the man walk out of jail with the weapon still in his possession? It just tore me up.
No, I don't really think I think it's on racism. Like, I think it's on racism.
It's just wrong how it happened, how the situation went down. Alright, I think this is about Trayvon Martin. I think it was cold how they did him, and like the dude was following him, and the cop said don't mess with him, and he just kept going and going and going. How would you feel if one of your family members got shot down for no reason, just for going to go get a pack of Skittles and Arizona iced tea? I mean, that's cold.
There are some posters and T-shirts and whatnot saying that I am Trayvon and I be Trayvon, things of that nature. And I thought about all of that. And as a black man, when you think about it, we are Trayvon. To a certain extent, because we are going to be dealt with that way. It seems like a certain light is cast upon us, and so we're treated a certain way until we prove who we are. It seems like we're in the situation where we have to prove and constantly prove who we are. So we are the Trayvon Martin, but we have to change that attitude. We have to change the attitude of America and the attitude of everyone that think a black life or a young black life is not worthwhile, and it's just not other cultures treating us this way, because black on black crime is very high. So we have to think about that same thing for ourselves. How do I deal with my brother? How do I deal with my friend? Do I hate him? Do I treat him differently than I would another culture? Or do I look down on him? How do we look at each other? That's the question. How do we look at each other? And then we can start to answer the question, how other cultures look at us. Because it's very important on how we look at ourselves. Someone says love starts at the house. So we need to bring that type of love into our communities, into our homes. And and it's my feeling that the Trayvon Martins of the future, they will either cease or they will become less.
Could have been one of us.
I don't believe it's got nothing to do with race, because first of all, if you see somebody walking through your neighborhood, they hoodie on their head, what you gonna think? But I do think the man took it out of proportion to be trying to shoot the boy, because he could have just waited for the police to get there and told him what was going on. Then he had to lie about it. That's what made it even worse. I don't think it's got nothing to do with race.
Could have been one of us.
The question was asked, what do we do to stop the Trayvon Martin situations from reoccurring? How do we stop that from happening in the future? Or how do we stop it from happening to our sons, for those of us that have sons? Well, one thing is education. We have to start with education, because education drives out ignorance.
Like, we just keep it real over here in ATL. And my situation, I'm speaking on that, is we have to look at the whole viewpoint, you know what I'm saying? It's a case of injustice to the black man all over again, stuff that happen every day. But, it's a shame that someone have to die before we stand up to prove that we are being injustice every day in the court system. There was a young black man who was headed wherever he was headed, bothering no one, who felt threatened because someone was trailing him. And eventually was someone trailing him with a loaded weapon. And now ask me, put yourself in his situation. Who was the person that felt that they was threatened? You on a lonely street at night, going down just, going about your business, trying to get where you going? Calling someone on the phone, letting them know that you being trailed. And then a 911 operator tells this young man, to not to follow the young man. And he does and proceeds anyway because of the machoism in him. You know, a very, very volatile situation. He violated that young man's rights. How could you feel that you were threatened when you had a loaded weapon and this was a unarmed young man being trailed by someone who turned out to be carrying a loaded weapon? Quite naturally, he felt threatened if he reacted. He was right on his thoughts that he was being threatened because he was being trailed by a man with a loaded weapon. So I don't care how you look at it. Like I said, we keep it real. I'm keep it real near. A ball is a ball, a scrack is a scrack. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, you're right. In this situation, he was a foul man in a foul situation who made a wrong decision. He should have stopped when the 911 operator told him to. Right.
There's a person that told me a few months ago that in 10 years or 20 years, the young black man is going to be obsolete. And not just from the standpoint of he's being killed, but from the economic standpoint. Because if they don't give you jobs, if they don't give you jobs, you won't have anywhere to work. And if you don't have anywhere to work, if you don't get money from a working source, you're probably going to try to steal it or take it from somebody. And what happens then? You either die or you go to prison. The consensus of America says that the young black man will be obsolete in the next 10 to 20 years. And that sounds far-fetched, but it's not far-fetched. There are quite a few cultures that are no more. That are no more. So now if you don't have a job, if you don't have a business, if you don't have anything to do, if you don't have anything to give to America, so to speak, then America don't want you. So now what do they do when they don't want you? Now we're already coming up with these two demographics, so to speak. It's going to be within the next 20 to 30 years, you will either be rich or you will be poor. Now, where will the black man stand in that situation? When you say rich or poor, where will he stand? Will he be the poor person? If he's the poor person, he's already on the bottom of the totem pole, where will he stand? So he'll be obsolete. He will be obsolete because what he's saying won't mean anything. It's not that he won't be on the earth anymore, but what he's saying won't mean anything. In politics, they call that a lame duck. When a president is getting ready to go out and he only has a certain amount of time, he can't control Congress and he can't make any laws, so he's a lame duck then. So the black man now, and it may sound far-fetched, but the black man now is a lame duck. So we have to start speaking up for things that's going to help the young black man, not things that are going to hurt him. Because, there's a whole lot of things that we can criticize. We can say this and that, and especially about the sagging pants. I'm not a fan of that either. But instead of all this criticism, let's see what we can do to help. Let's see what we can do to bring him up to this stature where he needs to be. And then that way, we will have a future. Because if the young black man dies, my future is gone. And a whole lot of other men like me. You don't have a future.
Could have been one of us.